Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. This morning, we want to take a look at Nigeria and the challenges of Ponzi schemes. And like I did say at the beginning, before we took that break, when you say Ponzi scheme, a lot of people will ask you, what exactly are you talking about? For them, they don't even understand what it is. And then Ajibala said, why are we so, engrossed in issues around money doubling? So is it about money doubling, or is it greed, or is it some, as Nigerians, we just love to take risks, like our guest also said. So again, we'll look at all of these things. So this morning we have George Ashiru, is the CEO, Honeycorp consultant. He's a financial management expert. Thank you for being here on the program today.
My pleasure, always. Thank you very much.
So when we say Ponzi scheme, then it looks like, okay, Ponzi scheme is not really a Nigerian thing. So when we say Ponzi scheme, can you break it down? What exactly do we mean? What exactly are we talking about?
Well, Ponzi is actually just a name, named after a gentleman called Ponzi. Yes, it didn't just come up. It was actually a human being who was a shark in that industry decades ago. And I think the general concept of it is that you promise people immediate benefits for an investment that, in actual fact, what is happening is that there's a first set of people that invest in such a scheme, and then the monies from the next generation of investors are used to pay off the promised benefits to the first set. And it becomes a cycle, because that first set that goes to tell everybody else that, I actually invested 1 million. And I got 500,000, 50% profit within 1 month. Right. So I've taken that money back again, and I'm going to make money. So there's another wave of people that will say, oh, wow. Oh, you did that. So that wave continues until it petals out. So what these people do is that it's as they say in Yubala, let's make as much money as we can from the laggards, the ones that come after the first set that we have to pay. So the ones that come, the rush that comes, this is like a pyramid. The first set are just a small amount. Then comes a critical mass. So that critical mass is where they make the most of their money. Okay. But I think the greatest challenge is that Nigeria as a country and the government realizes that these schemes have existed and they've come under different titles over the years. Right. But there doesn't seem to be either a mass education, which can be done at local government levels, it's not just the states, not just the federal, but a regulatory environment that makes it difficult that as soon as you even so much as here, there is a regulator somewhere that goes straight in.
Right. Sorry, Jibala, but I mean, like you've mentioned, I remember that before the latest one crashed, the CBEX, EFCC had alerted Nigerians on, how to ensure that, they're not being scammed. And so I just want to build up on the facts that you said there are no regulatory bodies. And so if an EFCC could have alerted Nigerians earlier to be wary of schemes as such, what other regulatory body do we need?
EFCC is not regulating. EFCC only comes in after the fact. EFCC cannot prevent a crime. EFCC only
they wait for the
crime
to have
after
been committed.
The crime has been committed.
Okay.
So based on the statistics of the crime, they can then go and say, look, these are the ways in which these crimes are committed, and we are warning you. But then you and I also understand that, I just said it, that it is until education of some of these things goes on at the local level. It is when you go to churches and you inform the pastors to tell their people. If you look at the majority of those who are scammed, 80% of them are probably Christians that were scammed by brothers who told them this is an opportunity for us to make money.
God's blessing.
Yes, and nobody inside the church is giving them a contrary information. And that's because when you are sitting in Abuja and you are broadcasting on some international megaphone, the ordinary people are not hearing it. The ordinary people are not seeing it. There are so many things going on in this country that the reason people say government is bad is because they don't even know what government activities are. National orientation agencies and MAMSA in the past and so on. The idea was that they will push a lot of
information to the grassroots in all languages.
In such a way that you can't miss it. And this has to be a consistent issue such that every critical issue is brought down So if something is, there will be an alert. If something's going on, okay, look, let me give you what I mean by regulatory issue. If you are manufacturing products that have chemical constituents or food products, NAFDAC is the regulatory body ensuring that those products are fit for consumption, right? So after you get the first license, the next production batch, who's checking to make sure that you have not added an element into it? The following year. So all this, the idea of regulation is not to give the initial approval. The idea is to monitor on a regular basis that you are fulfilling the conditions of the approval. That's why most approvals are provisional. So you will give, look at the CBEX scheme. They got all the approvals before they started operation. So what are you
approving?
You have not checked what they are doing because government is so focused on earning money. That's just a fill form, fill online, fill this, pay this money, and the approval is given. What about provisional approval?
Okay.
Such that you then come and say, after 1 year, apply for the proper approval. Lagos State is doing something fantastic in terms of the land approvals, for example, Ministry of Physical Planning. If you want to build land, they'll say, call for a provisional approval. We will give you a provisional approval after you've brought a couple of documents. But for us to be sure that there are no issues, no litigation concerning that property or that land, bring the official originals of this. Then we give you the final and formal after a period of time. That's what I mean by when the regulators are involved in ensuring that people are doing the right things on a consistent basis. Otherwise, Nigerians by nature, we always want to be the first to profit out of everything.
Okay, if that's the attitude of an average Nigerian, is there any psychology behind those who invest their hard-earned money in Ponzi scheme?
I think
because I was once bitten, and ever since then, I never tried it again.
I think one of the things you need to know about Nigeria and Nigerians, and this is why we are a very wealthy people and rich people, in as much as we have a lot of poverty even in the land, is that we are known all over Africa and in fact all over the world as risk takers. We are people that will do whatever we need to do to make it because it's culturally abhorrent to be a failure. In your village, you are nothing if you're a failure. So you can't sit on your back hoping that one day you will make it. If you hear of a scheme, you will take whatever you have and say, maybe today is the day that
the Lord has made.
Yes, it's the day the Lord has made. And that is the average attitude of the... See, a Nigerian will go to the embassy, not well prepared, with all the necessary documentations. Will go, they will refuse, he will go, they will refuse, they will go. And then one day, after 10 times, you finally say, praise the Lord. But you could have done it right first time. Because he still believes that maybe it's not my turn. Maybe it's not my time. All of the things he finally learned over the years that made him do it well the 10th time, he now wants to say it is a spiritual thing, whereas it was a preparatory issue. And I think that's just the nature of our culture. Our culture seems to give this impression that one day to be your turn. One day to be your turn. And you need to also understand that when people take risks such as this, look at everything we do in life. When somebody started pure water, one person started it, everybody mass migrated to it. When somebody started doing chips, my uncle was one of the pioneers of the chip industry, Ashley Chips, over 40 years ago. To him, from electronics, when they now stopped, when the tariffs went up during the military era and they could no longer break electronics, say, well, let me take the small money I have and start making chips at home. It was shameful to him. From somebody who had the superstore selling like Adeboali, and then all of a sudden chips. But the thing built houses on it. And next thing you know, all over the system, everybody is doing chips. Now, the reason we can't find cashew to eat is because people have plucked cashew and turned it into nuts. Have you not noticed that there's cashew nuts everywhere but no cashew fruits?
True.
Because they will trash the fruits and take the nuts because the nuts are expensive. They're more expensive.
Right.
You know, one single nut is probably more expensive than the fruit.
True.
And so there are quite a lot of things that culturally, and that's why governance is difficult. That's why governance is difficult.
So,
but reasonably, I'm sorry, Abimbola. When you look at the offers, they are very, very tempting, and they are too good to be true. So, if I'm giving you 5,000 naira, and you're telling me you're going to give me 50 naira in a week, 50,000 naira in a week or two, shouldn't that give me some signs that You are too good not to be true.
Then 3 people are giving testimonies already.
There you go.
3 people have given testimonies.
So you have to be part of those that are giving the testimonies as well.
Somebody just bought a car on the basis of a Ponzi scheme. He shows you the car. He tells you how he got the money. And then you are sitting there thinking, what if? But this is the evidence. It's the evidence.
So we're easily swayed.
We are easily swayed. Again, it comes back to what I said about this need for success.
Okay.
It's inbuilt in our culture.
Right.
This need to somehow get out of this rut and somehow make it. People know that there is death if you go on the roads to Europe. But they will say, not my own time. Not me. They will put themselves on that journey through the desert in the hope that they will be the ones to survive it. And I think that is why when we are talking about this, while we are speaking to the regulators, we also have to be talking to parents. We have to be talking to community leaders. You know, we have to be talking to all of those who influence others to take those decisions because they think maybe this is your own time.
Okay.
Maybe this is your own time. But I think we also have to be very aggressive in ensuring that regulators understand that they take responsibility for the failures of the economy based on these sort of things. 1-point-something trillion is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
At a time when a lot of states don't have that kind of budget.
Right.
How can one single organization raise 1.2 trillion? And some states don't have IGR over 200 billion. That's a failure of that entire state in comparison to what the owners of CBEX have done.
And this is where a lot of people have also looked at it from what you've raised now, that how can one organization raise such an amount of money where a lot of people are saying we are hungry, we cannot feed, we cannot do this, we cannot do that. And how does this come back, or how do we tie this to financial illiteracy?
So when you say financial illiteracy, you have to be able to contextualize it. Is it that people don't know how to invest, or people don't have the willingness and the patience to invest in the right way?
Exactly. People invest in the wrong investments, because, I mean, if you look at CBEX, to them, it was more or less like, oh, yes, I'm investing in a business. But at the end of the day, how you can't decipher if it's fraud or if you get scammed.
Because most of them said the decisions they made was based on the fact that they saw evidence of regulatory approvals. So they felt, well, this is a legitimate investment scheme.
Right.
And if government and nobody is making noise on any megaphone, at that point, they're going to keep going at it. And if the rise of that organization was so sudden, it was so sudden. It was like, I didn't hear about CBEX until
it crashed. Yes.
And somehow people found out about it, which tells you that there's nothing like financial illiteracy. It is a financial indecision or decision. People choose
to invest in
where
what
to
they want
invest.
to. Okay.
And I think what you've discovered is that even from the days of our own grandparents, where they used to like to put money in First Bank and in the safe havens, they will tell you that upon all the years they've saved the money, they only get 5%, 4.3, 4.2, 2.2. The children that came after them said, this is not an investment. Anything that does not generate 15, 20%.
2 digits.
Yes, minimum. It doesn't bring back anything. And so when Forum Bank and the others suddenly showed up over 30 years ago, people thought,
this
is what they call investment, where I can make 100% of my money back within 1 year. Nigerians don't have this idea that
long term.
Even the banks themselves don't make it easy for us. Mortgage banks, mortgage companies don't make it easy for us. How can somebody ask you to buy a 50 million naira house and pay within 6 months?
Where would you?
It's a presumption that everybody is a multimillionaire. So, yet you will claim that they can pay instrumentally. They are still going to pay 10 million or 12 million naira a month. How many people are earning 12 million? Why? Because the person who is a real estate developer will tell you that the bank did not give me a leeway to be able to offer you a longer lease. So our economic system does not permit long-term investment that will make people not rush into this sort of short-term opportunities. But if we had a culture of long-term investment, awaiting a long-term benefit, the chances are people may be a bit more confident that, okay, even if I don't have money right now, at least I have 20 years so I can take this risk and, and invest in a better form of investment. So I don't think people are financially literate.
Okay.
I don't think they have options.
Okay.
When you limit the options, then the only thing that they have left, look at people have tried to go into agriculture, they have been scammed. They'll say, oh, we're pulling money together to go and start a farm. At the end of the day, one person at the top actually was cheating them. There are fintechs that have scammed people investment money people are putting money and they've gone bust. So we also have to deal with the criminality of the minds of a lot of people who are actually setting up these schemes, because they will do everything to make it a legitimate, and they will invest, they will actually provide the information. I still have to ask that question: how did people find out about CBEX? It must have gone through some channels.
Because social media?
Social media, they even had media appearances in certain places.
So the point is that there is Gen Z that they know the target, that these people are always on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, and they're always on certain kinds of places, and they target them, and they spend money on, you know, the right kind of social media marketing.
Adverts, yes.
You know, and then they bring a couple of people, because I understand that even EFCC had to warn the so-called influencers. Because once an influencer speaks, people believe them.
Right.
So by the time we give you 10 million and say, please make noise on our behalf, over your noise, they've made maybe 200 million. So that again, and the person who is collecting 10 million is not going to go and start investigating. It's going to think first and foremost about business opportunity. Because I have 1 million followers, I have to make 10 million naira. So there's a plethora of issues that are connected to why this sort of, and by the way, let us not just say it's Nigerians. It's everywhere in the world.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It hits Americans. The fact that Americans keep falling for the Nigerian prince tells you that.
Okay, do we ascribe the love for Ponzi by Nigerians to poverty, greed, or the quest for quick wealth?
It's not poverty, because if there was poverty, they won't raise 1.2 trillion.
No, I agree.
So people have money. But greed, certainly. We are extremely competitive people. We are an extremely competitive people. And look at the social media. You will see people driving Rolls Royces in Nigeria now, like the way they are driving 505 in those days. It's like these are 800 million naira vehicles. How the hell are in quotes, the rich and mighty, suddenly Rolls Royces are all over Nigeria? And we say there's poverty. No, there's no poverty in the land.
Right.
There's no poverty in the land. What you may have is osmosis of money, that most of the money is in the hands of a few. You know, but that is what people look at, that gives them the greed. Why can't I also be like that person? Then they start to investigate. Then they might find out that, oh, this person is invested in this, or this person claims, because you have to hide, you have to hide your source of wealth. You would distract attention and say, oh, I invested in gold. Everyone say, well, he said he made his money through gold. Everybody will go to gold to find out it's GL. Oh, I invested my money in cocoa. All of them will go into cocoa to find out that no, there's no such thing as a place in cocoa where you can invest your money. In actual fact, it's just one small farm, and they will take all your money, and they're actually using your money to launder oil. So the fact is, we are easily influenced by what we are observing as evidence of wealth, and we're looking at it that, okay, I need that wealth, and that creates greed. I don't think people are just greedy. Right. I think people observe, like I said, we're competitive. So competitiveness will make you want to be like your neighbor. If they are living in a good house, I want to live in a good house too. Now that competitiveness is also has a positive benefit to us as Nigerians. Is that competitiveness that makes us succeed when we go to other countries where they are less competitive. You go to Kenya, you go to Southern Africa, they are laid back. The average Nigerian comes and sees opportunities and says, I can see opportunities here. And that competitive spirit kicks in. And they go in bang, 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 and they become successful in a short period of time. And these people can't understand how you can become successful in a short period of time.
And they get angry again.
Look at Lagos. We have 23 to 25 million people in Lagos. If you don't compete, you will die. So a competition is built around greed. The mere fact that you are not content is going to create competitiveness.
Right.
And competitiveness will ultimately lead to greed.
Okay, so earlier you did mention that, you know, lack of regulatory bodies. And so we do have a whole lot of them. There is the CBN, there is the SEC. And of course, at the tail end, you also have ICPC and EFCC. But let's look at those financial regulatory bodies, the CBN, the SEC. What more can they do, or how proactive can they be if CBEX got approval to, you know, for the kind of investment? At what points did they deviate from the initial approval that they got? And are there lessons here? If you get an approval for a business, do we just sleep and assume that they are operating in that line of business? Or the regulatory agencies, do they need to, from time to time, again do a back check as to whether or not these guys are operating with the approval that they got?
Have you noticed that if you walk around the streets of Lagos, you will see some houses that are marked X, and they put some marks there? What does that tell you?
Probably to be demolished or not approved.
That tells you that somebody has been going from street to street, monitoring something that has not been well put together. Check this file and say, we don't have approval for this. Put a mark on it and say, come and clear yourself. Regulatory work. That's what we mean. Most of the, if you notice, almost all of the issues we are raising, they are mostly federal regulatory bodies. And federal regulatory bodies have a problem with working with their state authorities who have the similar kind of regulatory body to say, can we work together? You have boots on ground. If somebody sets up a company in an organization, in a state, the state is interested in the payee. The federal is interested in the corporate tax. But what stops the two of them from working together? So if you have an agency that sets up, a company that sets up such a scheme, and immediately you start seeing that isn't there anybody whose job is monitoring and evaluation in any of these regulatory bodies?
They weren't forced.
They were not forced. You now have to go and prove by law. You now have to go to court and prove by law that you are forcibly, that you say companies fail all the time. Some people even bankrupt their companies knowingly, and it will be legal. It will be your business and investment loss. Now, I want to ask, what is going to be the law that they are going to use to sue CBEX as an organization? Are they going to sue them? They will say 419. No. You promised, we promised to give you a certain amount of money on your investment, and we gave those we can give. After a while, we couldn't afford it anymore, and we stopped doing business. Is it not the same thing that happens with banks that collapsed?
Yeah, but then those ones they have some kind of.
Amcon will give you 50,000 or 50 million.
Yeah, I see, right.
You put in 50 million, you lose your money. You've lost your money. You don't have rights to your 50 million. It was an investment decision you made in the wrong place. Okay. The only thing that can happen is that the regulatory bodies can now go and sue the leaders of that organization to find out if there's malfeasance. Okay. And that is if they can prove it. And in most cases, if you can't prove it, they will still go away. They will say it's just a bad investment.
Wow. Okay, talking about regulation, just like you are rightly cited, the Security Exchange Commission, after that CBEX incident, came out to say that, okay, for those promoters of Ponzi scheme, they will face 10 years in jail term or 20 million naira fine. Is that enough to chase these investors away?
I don't even think that those kind of laws, those kinds of laws, if you go to court, that they can win in many of these cases. Because you are then indicting yourself. You gave a license, an approval for an organization to use the word investment to operate. But you did not check to see their method of operation and what they're doing. You are now coming back to say, if you do Ponzi scheme, should you not have initially, ab initio, ensured that this is not a Ponzi company? You didn't do that. And when they started operating, there was no monitoring and evaluation. Most banks right now are heavily monitored.
Right.
The CBN has people that go to those. Banks are always so afraid. That's why they do KYCs every day. They're afraid because any small thing, they're going to find you 1 billion, 10 billion. Don't we read it in the papers? You people give us the news of how CBN is always finding banks. Why can't they do the same thing to lower level investments? Is it because the money in the banks are much, much bigger? It's the same principle, the same departments that are monitoring banks as investment instruments, because that's really what they are. Any money instruments should be monitored the same way, regardless of whether they are trillion naira organization or whether they're 1,000 naira organization, as long as they are taking money from people. Right. Just like you have this data gathering law, GD. Once you are gathering data, according to Nigerian law, you should go to NITA and register yourself as an organization that gathers data, personal data of people, because they need to know what you're doing with that. So data protection. So now, if you are gathering the data, now that you have registered, are they asking you on a regular basis, what are you doing with that data? What is the purpose of your data gathering? Let us have the statistics of what you're doing with the data. So that way, indirectly, they are looking to see whether or not you're using the data to trade, to sell, you're selling to other people. Because the fact that you're giving me a license to me means I can do anything with the data.
Anything, right. So, I did ask you this question. I joked about it before we came on air, that if another scheme would come tomorrow, Nigerians will still go and approach this scheme. So, how do Nigerians? Is there any way that you can actually do your own personal back check and know whether or not a scheme or an investment, aside the fact that all investment, like you said, are risks involved, but are you able to smell from afar some fraudulent investment, or are there tips readily available? Because again, sometimes these things are there, but again, people do not look, or people do not ask questions. But because this is your forte as an expert in financial management, are there things that people can actually be on the lookout for when these things do come, and then whether or not it is an investment worth going into? Anybody who has any sizable amount of money knows that before you make your money available for an investment, you should talk to an expert. And that's what a lot of people don't do. Yeah, but because they think that, paying experts to give them advice is more or less like... That's the answer. Okay. When you have a problem, you go and look for a spiritual expert. Is it true or false? You don't sit at home and...
Even when the problem is not spiritual.
Well, at least in your opinion, it's a spiritual... People want to travel abroad, they go and seek spiritual advice. Should I travel? Should I not travel? Is this God's will? You want to marry somebody you like, you take their name to somebody else. To somewhere. Why is it that we know how to get spiritual advice, but we cannot get financial advice? And do you still not one way or the other pay? When you go seek those advices, you still pay one way or the other, either through offerings or tithe. And I'm not mocking this because I'm a spiritual person myself. My point is that if you come to me as a spiritual person and say, please, I need your spiritual advice as an elder in the church, can I do this? I will say, what is the issue? You will say, I actually want to invest, but I want to know whether it's God's plan. I say, go and study the book. It's my job to now say, go and look for the experts. If you come with a health issue, I'll say, go and meet the doctor. That's my point. So, and people do. So the issue is this: you have 1 million. You can't look for a chartered accountant to advise you. You can't look for an investment expert to tell you, no, don't go there, go here. You go because your friends said you should go. So in a lot of ways, coming with our greed is our stupidity. And our pride, arrogance, stubbornness. The idea that nobody can tell me what to do. Is my money. How I made the money. And don't forget, for you to invest, it means you must have made the money somehow. Sure. It probably means you're a risk taker in the first place. You took risks to become rich. You are not trying to scale. And then, unfortunately, they scaled you out. But, George, sorry, it's also, again, sometimes some of those people that, go to these schemes are not also quite rich. Some of them are also... They're still struggling. Struggling and managing with the hope that, well, I will blow when I go there. So I'm just trying to, again, look at the facts that those that do not even have the money to seek help from experts. CBEX investments were dominated in dollars. Wow. Yes, they had to buy. It was dominated in dollars. $100 per block of investment. So you would tell me the person is poor and is investing in dollars. Go and borrow money to buy $100. So the point... yes, so the point is that people... I will always say this as a Nigerian myself, as a man who has taken risks all his own life himself. That's just who we are. We will take risks, believing that it will be our turn to blow, to get that benefit. And it is a cultural issue. It is not common sense. It is not something that everybody is not left to go and think about. It's an instinct that we have. The same natural instinct that the average Nigerian has to having children, which is why we have a population of 250 million, that I must have children to show evidence that I'm successful in life. I must marry even though I don't have the right kind of mental health to keep a spouse. because the culture expects it. And I think we need to do self-reflection. And we also need to advise some of the younger people that everything you want to do, sometimes reflect. Don't do it because that is what everybody is doing. Don't go there. Now, let me give you an example of something that may be slightly off. It's another form of Ponzi scheme. But it is not illegal. It's not inappropriate. It just shows you how we are.
Is that better?
The moment people... I'm not going to go that.
You know, people bet a lot these days.
I've been betting since I was born. It was
And
the
then-
military stopped it after a while.
And then they brought it back,
because
and
of
it's
the
been
taxes,
and it's been refined.
because the taxes that have been collecting, the federal government is collecting taxes off of it. So as far as they're concerned, you know,
It's
the
business.
They even have federal Luto. Federal
Yes.
government is safe. Its investment is in
There's
Luto.
the loot.
So now, the moment people realize that you could monetize your talents on social media, what did it produce? It produced a lot of strange behaviors. People started showcasing unusual things, lying, fake stories, because they realized that whether it is true or not, as long as you read it, they get paid.
Yeah.
Why are people doing that, even though they know it's wrong? Simply because we have a culture that puts wealth and money and lucre and profit above everything else. Somebody told me, when I was challenging one of my brothers from Igbo land, I said, why do people throw money? We started this in Lagos. It was an Ijebu thing. Ijebu would do
To
party.
spray money.
They will spray money. And then you people took it to another level. This one it showers of blessing. He said to me, he said, in our culture, if you do not have evident wealth, you will not be respected, you will not be a voice in the village. Which means find that wealth.
By all means possible.
Otherwise, you will be
not.
somebody that in the village you will pass by, they will say, hey, no, pass that side, pass that side. So that, I think there are some people in the audience that agree with me. That culture in itself, you can see how it is impacting even marriages.
Right.
You cannot marry the woman you want because you can't afford the bride price.
Right.
You know, and so on and so forth. So whether we like it or not, we have to reflect inward as the things we permit. A lot of these people who invested in CBEX got the approvals of even some of their own mentors and parents.
Sure.
They say, no, go and try it. Maybe today now your own chance.
Okay, this quest for emergency wealth and greed, what do you think we can do as a society to start changing the orientation of our young ones, or especially those who are addicted to Ponzi scheme, so that they will stop wasting their money or investing their money in the wrong way?
Now, the only way to modify a bad behavior is to model a better behavior. You don't stop something except to give an alternative. So once people don't have the option of what are the things they can do with, or to make wealth, for example, then they will do the ones that are available to them. Why our young boys are into cultism? Why are they into occultism? Why are they into, what do they call all those various ritual practices and all that? It's because they have looked around and they haven't seen anything that they can hold on to that is promoted by government or even well-to-do private sector, that they can stick their necks in, and they are guaranteed that they will succeed if they work at it.
Right.
So because there are not enough of it, I like the fact that people like Tony Lumelu is setting up this entrepreneurial scheme. The Dangote has invested in, you know, with BOI and all of that. But look at the conditions required to get there. Some people look at themselves, where do I start?
I can't get there.
I have talent, but I don't have this, I don't have that. And there is nothing in society that gives me a social safety net pending when I can put everything in place. We don't, social insurance in the UK means that as long as you are registered, you are a citizen and you are registered, or you're a resident and you're registered, and you are paid any form of taxes at any time during your life, even if you haven't paid, you are entitled to a minimum dole money, which is a certain amount of pounds per week to survive, so that you don't go into crime. They guarantee you as a single woman with a pregnancy, a council flat, which unfortunately Nigerians went and abused too.
He's been abused.
So they will build it to provide a social safety. Now that means you are not going to do something crazy like going to prostitution because you had no choice. Now we don't, that when people criticize government, they're not criticizing government for bits and pieces of what they're doing. It is the idea that you don't even understand the entire infrastructure required to lift the people out of the situation they're in. And I said it on a news channel just a couple of days ago. I said, if I spend 80% of all the money I make as a governor on building high-rises and bridges, I will make the rich richer and the poor poorer. Because what I've done is I've prioritized physical infrastructure over people, expenditure on lifting people out of poverty. So if you do what they are doing in Dubai, it was parallel. As they were building the cities, they were building their people.
Right.
They removed taxes, they guaranteed them employment, they guaranteed them money if they were not employed, so that as rich people were buying all those houses, they were moving the money to the poor. Now there's no poor person in Dubai. Same thing in Singapore, in Taiwan, in Malaysia, and all those places, Philippines. And I think it is why government at this point has to go back and think, okay, what are we not doing right so that our people don't do what they're doing?
Right.
That self-reflection, like I started with, is what is required.
Okay. Self-reflection is required not only for the government, but to everyone as Nigerians, so that we all can begin to see and think about a better future. Thank you so much, Judge Ashiru, for finding time to be here with us. It's always a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, Joy will be here with her Lagos conversation.